frontier. Let me, William Shatner, take you on a voyage of discovery as we share fascinating facts about this intriguing world. In the recent past, we inhabitants of Earth have been concerned about invasion, flaming meteorites, and aliens from this mysterious red planet. I can reassure you there's no immediate cause for alarm, so for now, buckle your seatbelts and let us boldly go to find out what we know about Mars. To the Romans, the red color of the planet suggested bloodshed, so they named it after their gods of war. We now know iron in Martian dust reacts with oxygen to produce that rusty red color. So much for tragic Roman theories. Mars has two moons, Phobos, which is Greek for fear, and Deimos, which means flight. They were named after the horses which pulled the chariot of the Greek god of war, Ares. Humans have long been obsessed with intelligent life on Mars. An Italian astronomer must take some blame for this. In 1877, Giovanni Schiaparelli observed grooves or lines on its surface. He called these canali and thought they must have been made by sentient beings. Later, these grooves turned out to be an optical illusion. You'll find the largest mountain in the solar system on Mars. It is 3 times taller than Mount Everest and as wide as the entire Himalayan mountain range. This colossal specimen is called Olympus Mons. Thinking of taking a vacation? Mars is 1,000 times further away from Earth than the Moon, so it would take us approximately 6 months to get there. That's a lot of in-flight movies. Did you know a year on Mars lasts 687 days, making a Martian year nearly twice as long as an Earth year? With 6-month-long summers, why not move to Mars? The simple scientific answer is we wouldn't be able to breathe. Its atmosphere is made up of 96% carbon dioxide and less than 0.2% oxygen. In these conditions, you really would be dying to get that killer tan. So far, we've launched 40 missions to Mars, but only 18 have been successful. Hopefully the failures weren't due to Martian interference. Weaker gravity on Mars means 100 kilograms on Earth is equivalent to just 38 kilograms on Mars. Moving to Mars would be a very effective way to lose weight. The Outer Space Treaty was signed by most nations in 1967. This established outer space as belonging to no single group, but instead to the whole of mankind. That's right, we all own a piece of the red planet. But flights won't be cheap. In fact, it would be cheaper to build a life-sized astronaut in gold than actually send one to Mars. I suppose the big burning question we humans really want the answer to is, can we boldly live where no man has lived before, and more importantly, is it safe? This is William Shatner saying good night.
Okay, YouTubers, I hope you enjoyed that BBC Radio 4 clip I just showed you with William Shatner on the narration. But I would like to point out that what that clip should have been called was what we are willing to tell you about Mars rather than what we know about Mars. Because a lot of it is actually very debatable. And first of all, the canals on Mars, the so-called Schiaparelli's canals. Now, this was a mistranslation from the Italian, canales. It doesn't mean canal, it means channel. And Mars is covered in channels and visible even with a fairly sort of, well, you'd have to have quite a big telescope actually to see them in any detail really, but you have the Valles Marineris, of course, which is here, and you've got these massive river kind of structures here, and there are also, in some areas on Mars, there's also like huge areas where, at least at some point in the past, you would have had water flowing from the northern hemisphere, which was a massive ocean, to the ocean in the southern hemisphere. And you may have had long channels of water coming from the north to the south. They're not visible now, of course, because there's not supposed to be any liquid water on Mars. I dispute that. There is some in parts of Mars, at certain times of year, briefly, especially in the melt zones. And you also have, of course, I showed these recently on a recent video, millions of Mars domes. I'll put a link to that at the end. You've got all these things up here in the northern hemisphere, which are these very shiny structures. Now, NASA calls these dunes. I beg to differ. Some of them are in formation, like we have here. There's a whole area here. In fact, these are in line formation, a lot of them, but there are millions of them, and I'm still fascinated by these, and many of them are highly reflective, and they're not dune-shaped at all. They're sort of kind of square and sort of L-shaped and V-shaped, a lot of them, but many of them are rectangular, and they're in groups and clusters, smaller clusters like this, and often in massive, huge areas. And some of them go on for thousands of miles all around the northern part of Mars, and are not difficult to find. All you have to do is look at it up towards the North Pole, and you will see them. Let me zoom out and give you some context there, if you haven't already looked at Mars. If you haven't been on Google Mars, all you have to do is go on Google Earth, go on the little planet icon up here and select Mars, and off you go. Simple as that. Let me zoom out. The area where all these are around Mars, in the northern hemisphere, are around this kind of northern part here. You can actually see where the images have been joined on and stitched together here, and there's quite an obvious line around here. That's where you want to look, just along there. They're all along here, and they kind of start around here and they go all the way round up to here, and there's just millions of them, and I don't think they're all natural. Many of them probably are dunes, of course, but these ones here particularly are very reflective, and I don't see how they can be dunes, as NASA call them. So you do have to take with a pinch of salt what we're told by the powers that be, because I really don't think they have the jurisdiction to come out and say, oh, by the way, there was life on Mars. They're not going to do that. They don't have the mandate to do that and have their hands tied. So, I mean, I actually think, you know, if there was one person that we had on Earth who was going to announce to everybody that there was life on Mars, then I think William Shatner would be a good guy. He's a very clever guy, he's a funny guy. But that BBC film you just watched is largely propaganda, and many of the facts in it, so-called facts, are a bit shaky. The name of Mars coming from the Roman god Mars is also not a complete fact either. Excuse my voice, by the way, I do have a cold, so bear with me. I'll put links to all these things below so you can check these things out yourself. There would be links to the relevant videos at the end of this video, and there'll also be links to all the pages and images below in the description. Okay, so pertaining to the name Mars, where does it come from? Well, the common myth that we're told about this was that the name came from the god Mars, the god of war, the Roman god. Now actually, what you will find if you study even a very rudimentary look at the Roman and Greek gods, you will find that they copied all their gods from the ancient Greeks, who were around earlier. So, as was said in the video, is it true that the name Mars comes from the ancient Romans? Well, no, it's not. And even in Wikipedia here, on Wikipedia, when you read it, it says about the god Mars and the Romans and the origins of the name and everything else. But what they fail to mention, in fact, is that all the Roman gods were direct copies of the Greek gods. And all they did was translate that name into Roman and then call it Mars, and which is what we've been stuck with. But the original name would have been Ares or Ares. And astronomers still refer to it as Ares, which is the Greek name. And Ares was the Greek god of war, or Ares. And if you look at some of my videos, I do go into this in more detail, especially in this video here, Gods of Mars and Earth, Martian statue art analysis. That's well worth watching. There will be a link to that at the end of this video. And if you want, you can also watch Gods of Mars Part 2, Martian statue art collection as well. That doesn't have all the statues in it. That has about 26. There's another bunch in here as well. So you can go through, and some of them do look very Greek or Greco-Roman in style. And we also have this video here, where we have what looks like a Greco-Roman style helmet just sitting on a ridgeline on the planet Mars. Now this was from a gigapan put together by Neville Thompson, so thanks to him on that. Links below this video for any more info on that. If you want to go and check it out, you can follow the links to this image. So all these images can be verified, and you can link to the official pages on the JPL photo archives. Okay, so these are all real images of Mars taken by the Mars rover. This is from the Curiosity rover, and you can see here what looks like a helmet. I'll go forward a bit because this takes a while. It's a little bit slow. Let's go forward to the enhancement. There we go. Let me pause it a minute. See a highly reflective area here, and a lovely curve here, and a nose guard here, and what looks like a crumpled area where the helmet's been damaged, and two clear eye socket sort of areas. I mean, this looks like a Greco-Roman helmet, what can I say? And it's not the only one. In fact, if you go through this video, you will see others that I found, and there's many comparisons, so it's well worth a look at this. So there was that video, and also pertaining to the rather funny clip of the Mars Attacks character that comes at the end of the video that we just saw. There's this. Now this was found by Eric Collingridge in 2015. Here's the credit for him there. He posted it on Facebook, and I saw it immediately and thought, wow, what do we have here? Now this is a humanoid skull. It's not a rock. You can see clearly it has a cranium and teeth and a jawbone, and as I get closer, let's speed that up a bit to save time, you will see it in better detail. Let's see the enhancement. There we go. Now, why would a rock have eyes, a nose, you can see nasal cavities there, and teeth like this? Why would it? It's because it's not a rock. And if you compare it to that character, and there is another comparison coming up now, you will see that it is very similar, and it has this brain-like structure to the skull here. Now this may be where the skull's damaged, and you have some of the brains actually showing through the broken skull. Okay, let's go back again just to show you that again, in case you missed it. And why would a skull have eyes still left in it on Mars? Well, we don't know exactly what fleshy material these Martians were composed of, and they may have had partial exoskeletons, and their eyes may have been made of calcium and may work very differently, much like some sea creatures, you know. We don't know. We haven't sampled this stuff yet, or at least we haven't been told. So, and also, of course, the lack of oxygen on Mars now could preserve these things in very great detail for many thousands of years. So that may be why we're seeing eyeballs in some of these skulls, or they may have had eyeballs fake eyeballs placed back in the skull in some sort of ritual. This is common in some cultures, especially where they mummify people. They often put fake eyes back in the skull, and then stick the guy's head on a plinth or something, and go and talk to him occasionally as one of the ancestors or something, you know. This isn't uncommon on Earth. So there's that guy again, and this is an exoskeleton kind of dude. And he even has the gill-like structures here, a bit like the skull does here. Very odd indeed. Are they hinting that they know more than they are actually telling us when they do these little films and propaganda films? I think they are, and I really think that there's a huge cover-up going on about Mars, and has been for many, many years, as there is with the Moon. And so there'll be links to all this stuff below, and of course the ancient Greek, as I said earlier, the ancient Greek name for Mars is Ares, and we have what look like Greco-Roman style helmets, and we have statues on Mars that look Greco-Roman in some of these videos, which I'll link to in a minute. So there we have it. Please leave your comments and witticisms below, and please share on social media and give the thumbs up if you can. It really helps. Thanks for watching, everybody. Links coming up now.